Hi everyone, Radhe Radhe. So today is just has been a game changer day for me. Yesterday basically it started and today it became much more because this new book that I found from somebody who just gifted me this book from online from the Seattle Indian community. It's completely game changing. The book is called The Complete Bhagavad Gita by Koti, Sri Krishna and Hari Ravi Kumar. This is the book I mentioned. I showed it up yesterday, but I am blown away by this book. Um, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit. I read the introduction of the book today, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So if you want to go directly into the verse, you can just skip. You can skip to the part where right now it's only my face showing, but if you scrub and skip, you'll see wherever it starts to show the screen, that's where I'm going to go into the actual verse. So I'm going to have a little bit of a pre-conversation before that. So feel free to skip if you just want to go directly into the verse. So the person Koti Sri Krishna, he has written as I read his preface and introduction, I realized that he has read multiple versions of the book himself. He's read about 50 different versions of the Gita and he's memorized all 700 verses as well. He's like done everything that I want to do. He's pretty much followed exactly the path that I wanted to follow. And I love the way he thinks. So, in the introduction, he talks about the pitfalls of translations. And he talks about, so that's what I'm going to go into a little bit. This video is going to be a little long because of that. I'm going to go into explaining what he's talking about because that will help you to understand also why I'm picking this, and it helped me. It completely expanded my mind because what I wanted was a literal translation. I what I wanted, and the reason it didn't quite work with the books that I had already was I felt that there was a lot of commentary which was very specific, and I wanted something that was just pure and authentic and literal and all of that. So he talks about the pitfalls of literal translation, even, and how it helps to understand. So let's go through that a little bit. I have not completely understood his title. Like he gives many different examples with different titles, and to me, many of those titles feel like the same thing, but you can decide for yourself. So he's saying, for example, so the first example that he gives different examples from different verses where he does a literal translation or mere literal translation. Then he explains how he translates it so that we can actually understand it, so that it makes sense, and how the literal translations don't often work, and how you don't need. So what I've noticed in his book is he doesn't have lengthy commentaries, and that is beautiful because what he's doing is he's actually translating it in such a good way that you don't even need long lengthy commentaries on it, and you don't need long lengthy explanations, and he even talks about that. Okay, so inappropriate word choices is his first title for that. So in verse 2.47, the verse he says is the word that he's translating is adhikar, adhikara. Adhikar means right. Adhikar is like what is my right. So if you translate it literally, for action alone is thy right, but never the fruits thereof. So what this means, the translation means, is my action is my right, but the fruits are not my right, which basically means that I'm not going to get the fruit if you literally understand it that way. But that's not what it means. So he says if you change the word adhikar to mean control, and you say you can control your actions but you cannot control your results. That is the basic fundamental concept of the Gita, right? So you control your actions but you do not control your results, but that doesn't the right word does not make sense. So that's an inappropriate word choice there. That does it. And he does a simplistic translation. That's another example that he gives, and that's the title, simplistic translation. So the verse 7.14, if you do a simplistic translation, or in my word, what I'm saying is literal translation, then it comes out to be composed of nature's qualities. The word guna is used as quality. So the composed of nature's qualities, my divine magic, the word maya is translated as magic, So, composed of nature's qualities, my divine magic is hard to escape, but those who seek refuge in me cross over this magic. Now, this does not make any sense at all. So, the way he translates it is indeed difficult to overcome the influence of my divine Maya, which is caused by the gunas. But those who submit to me overcome the influence of Maya. And that makes so much sense. It's so simple to understand and it makes so much sense. And so I understand, yes, that we don't want absolute literal translations for that. Um, Now the next thing is literal translation, the title that he has. To me, all of this just means basically don't do a literal translation and instead like understand the spirit behind it, but also yeah, don't deviate from that. Like still be authentic to it. Okay, so as much use, literal translation is, as much use there is for a well when water is overflowing everywhere, that much use there is in all the Ved for a person who knows the Brahman. Now that is very convoluted. So he's saying it's not an incorrect translation. However, it's not a typical method of constructing a sentence in English, while it is admirably suited to Sanskrit. So to be effective, we have to recreate this idea without losing the spirit and without straying too much away from the letter. And so he translates it as what is the use of a well when there is a flood and water is flowing freely everywhere? What is the use of all the Vedas when one has realized the ultimate truth? So basically, if there is water everywhere, we do not need a well. There's just water everywhere. There's overflowing water everywhere. So the same thing as when we have realized the ultimate truth, which is like when we know the Brahman, when we have realized the ultimate truth, we don't need all of the Vedas. We don't need to go into the Vedas and learn all, like study all of that. We don't need it because we've realized it. We've experienced it. So that's verse 2.46. Now the next one is using commentary as a crutch. So instead of translating it properly, people will do a literal translation and then use commentary as a crutch to explain it properly. He's like, it's not even, that's also not even needed. So he's talking about verse 18.7 here, 18.70, sorry. So 18.70, he's saying the concept is that he's saying that, and anybody who's read the Gita and studies, memorized all of the verses of the Gita and studied the Gita, I will consider him as having done Gyan Yoga. Now he talks about, I think, 4 yogs in the Gita. Gyan Yoga, which is knowledge, like 4 paths to God. So one is Gyan Yoga, which is knowledge, the knowledge path. Bhakti Yoga, which is the devotional path. Love and devotion is Bhakti Yoga. And then Karma Yoga is like doing the right thing, doing your duty, that kind of thing. And then there's, I think, a 4th one. So he's saying here in verse 18.70, anybody who has done this text, who has memorized my words, I'm going to have considered having done the Gyan Yoga part to attain God. So the literal translation is hilarious. He's like, and I consider he who commits the sacred dialogue of ours to memory, by him I shall have been worshipped by the sacrifice of knowledge. Such is my conviction. Yagya is a sacrifice. So they use the word yagya, which he's translating as like, it doesn't need to mean sacrifice, because we're not sacrificing, we're sacrificing time and effort, so we're putting in time. So it's like we're calling it an effort. So when we translate verse by verse, again, by understanding the spirit behind it, no elaborate commentary is required. And the translation is, whoever studies the sacred dialogue, I consider him to have honored me through Gyan Yajna. That is, he has made an effort to understand my words of wisdom. Right? Simple. Very easy to understand that. Very simple, clear. And then, okay, so now he's saying the next title is Unclear Without Commentary. And to me, it's also the same thing. You get a literal translation and then you're translating it in the proper way. Okay, this is, what verse is this? Let's see. Verse 3.28, when he can discriminate the actions of nature's qualities and think the qualities depend on other qualities, he is detached. Now that does not make any sense to me at all. And so what he's translating it as, which makes sense, is one who has true insight into the interplay of guna. Guna, he's talking about inherent traits of an individual. So my traits are my guna. My inherent traits are my guna. Just so profound. Like I love this verse because it's so profound. And karma, which is karma is action. So the different spheres of action. He's saying different possibilities of actions. So one dimension is my traits, my inherent traits. The other dimension is actions, different possibilities of actions. And so one who has true insight into the interplay of gun and karma and how they are influenced by the collective nature of society does not get entangled. So one who has true insight into the interplay of my thing, my traits of karma, the different spheres of action, and how they are influenced by the collective nature of society. So the third dimension is the collective nature of society, like where you're living, this is thing. So when you have mastered true insight into my traits, the different possibilities of actions, and society's traits, like society's general traits, if we have insight into that, then we will not get entangled into Maya or into the this world. So that's the these are the translations. Yeah. So and he has a few others, one or two others, which did not resonate as clearly. So I'm going to talk about just these. And so this was an extremely enlightening day for me because I learned how my my quest for literal translations was not absolutely perfect, and I learned exactly why and how that literal translation does not necessarily work. And yet I do want to be as authentic as I possibly can be. So I think that this book is just amazing. Even with the verse that we're doing right now, we'll see verse 33. We're going to be doing chapter 1, verse 33 today. So even in this verse, you can see the translation that I'm going to read through the Gita Daily website, which is Prabhupada's translation. It's a little bit confusing to me. And then when I went into this book and another place that I will show you, it just made a lot more sense. It flowed very easily, and it was beautiful. So let's go into the verse, and I will go to the Gita Daily website. Yeah, so in this is the previous verse, 32. Shamarthi kangshitam no rajyam bhoga sukhani cha ta ime vasistayuddhe pranam styaktva dhanani cha. Okay, so yesham arthe kangshitam no. Yesham is, let's see where it is. Of whom, arthe for the sakes, kangshitam. So even the previous word had the word akanksha is desire. So kangshitam is desired, no, by us. Rajyam, bhoga, sukhanicha. So kingdom, material enjoyment, happiness also. So this is repetitive a little bit because just in the previous section he talked about that same thing. What uses the rajyam and bhoger, enjoyment, and here he said jivitena instead of sukhani. So he's kind of being slightly repetitive here. And then te ime avasthita yuddhe, all of them situated on this battlefield. Pranan tyaktva dhanani, riches, lives giving up riches also. So the translation in here is, it seems to be mixed with the previous one. Oh Govinda, what avail to us of what avail to us are a kingdom of happiness or even life itself. This was the previous until here, when all of those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield. So this is what he's translated this verse, these 4 sections to be. And so let me go to this translation from the book, which I love very much. Okay, so alas, for those whose sake we desire kingdom, pleasures, and comfort. So he's translated pleasures for bhoga. bhoga is pleasures, and sukh is not happiness but comforts. So for those whose sakes we desire kingdom, pleasures, and comforts, the very same ones are standing here in battle, risking their lives and riches. So tyaktva he is translated as, so tyag is to renounce, to give up, to let go of. So here he's translating it as risking. He's like having given up, renouncing, and risking. That's in the word by word translation that he has. But in the translation, he's saying, if we, for those whose sake we desire kingdom, pleasures, and comforts, the very same ones are standing here in battle, risking their lives and riches. So we will get all these comforts and all that kind of stuff, but if they lose their lives, what is the point of it, right? If they lose their lives anyways, they're risking their lives and their riches. What is the point of giving people more comfort and kingdom, pleasure, and comforts when for those who for whom we're doing all of this are risking their lives anyways, like all of his soldiers and his armies and everything. So that's what he's saying, which totally makes sense to me. It is a very valid question. you know um, what is the point of war, to give somebody comfort and pleasure and kingdom, pleasure, and comfort when they're risking their life? So this particular one that I love to read also has a very good translation for that. Those for whose sake we desire kingdom, enjoyments, and pleasures, stand here in battle, having renounced life and wealth. But yes, the best translation I'm finding is this one. For those who sakes we desire kingdom, pleasure, and comforts, the very same ones are standing here in battle, risking their lives and riches. That's just a perfect translation for me. Okay, so this was verse 33. We will do chapter 1, verse 34 next time. I hope this was a useful insight for you as well as it was for me. And I am feeling even more motivated right now to study the Gita and study the different versions of the Gita. I have a few more versions that I'm still collating the Facebook messages that I got. I've collated most of it, but I've gotten, I think, a total of 18, out of which maybe 10 more I can get, versions of the Gita. So I'm very excited to read even more versions of the Gita, which I love as much as I love this book. Because none of the other things so far, like the Prabhupada translation and the Chaitanya Charan Prabhu translation, which is comes from the Srila Prabhupada's translations, and the Swami Mukundanand and Swami Chinmayanand is just so much Arjun bashing. It just doesn't, it hurts my heart. I'm like, I don't want to hear anything against Arjun. Please don't do that. I mean, yeah, he's confused. He's asking questions. He's human, but yeah, anyways. And then Swami Mukundanand is much better, and it's still not quite as, it doesn't feel as much knowledge based and Gyan Yoga and like good translation where they're really looking at the text and really trying to understand it. So the Srila Prabhupada one is good in if you have decided that you're going to go down the Bhakti Yoga path and you're going to go down the path that he recommends, then that's like he just talks about that, right? He does not look at the Gita independently and say, okay, what is it trying to say? He's understood from his perspective. It's all about Bhakti Yoga, and he talks about that in every verse. Basically, he's not just talking about the verse on hand. He goes into the future and he talks about the verse. For me, the thing that I'm really eager to do is like try to get as authentic as possible to what God said. Like the Bhagavad Gita means Song of God, so I want to go directly to the Word of God and what God said and what He's trying to tell us, what He's trying to teach us. And so this, yeah, my effort feels amazing to me. I'm very curious to see where this all leads, because eventually I think I'm going to potentially find a guru, find somebody that resonates on the path to spiritual growth. And I think this effort is going to be a very important effort along that path. Anyways, um, okay, we're done for today. Wish you a very, very beautiful day. Radhe Radhe.